Hello and welcome to the Level Cap podcast, hosted by me, Marco De Santos, also known as the Mechanic Critic, and with me is the ever wonderful Brad Talton Jr., president of Level 99 Games. How are you doing, Brad?
I'm doing well, Marco. It's good to be with you this fine morning. It's a nice, bright, early morning here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's pretty late for you over there in the Philippines, right?
Yeah, it's like 11 and it's dark. I'm in a room all by myself.
So the stars have aligned, and we have finally gotten together to bring this podcast to life.
Oh, yes.
Quite exciting.
I'm very happy that we finally got our schedules to match.
Well, cool. Well, let's do this thing.
Yeah, okay, so we have a very nice show coming up for all of you listeners out there. We have a few things on our docket. We're going to be talking about games we've recently played and some interesting things about them. We're going to be talking about our character of the week, Hikaru. And also we're going to talk about some very interesting things with relations to the upcoming projects that Brad has for Level 99 Games, and maybe answer some of the questions that the community has given us over this period of time. So, speaking of that, how are you doing, Brad? How's the early morning for you? Have you eaten breakfast?
Work is good. I haven't done breakfast just yet, but I get up around this time of day and I get started. Usually I get up and I do the creative side of the work. So I'll be making characters or designing bosses or writing up lore or whatever around the morning times, and then later on in the afternoon I get down to all the logistical type of work that flows from running a company. But yeah, I'll probably sit down and do some work on Seventh Cross right after we finish up the podcast.
Oh
So
my goodness.
looking forward to that.
Don't hype me more for Seventh Cross. You know how much I love the theme of Seventh Cross.
Our latest prototype is quite good. It's we had a good time with it yesterday.
Okay, I mean, we're just teasing the listeners at this point because I don't think we're going to be talking about Seventh Cross in this podcast. But regardless, my day's been not that bad. My exams just finished, which is the main reason why we have not been able to coordinate with each other for quite a while. I've been too busy studying for exams. But now that they're done, I can get back to doing important things like making BattleCON videos, making podcasts with you, I guess.
School's important too, but it's good to have you back with us.
Yeah.
And it'd be good to see some more videos coming out soon too.
Yeah. I have some stuff lined up. And
so
of course,
have you managed to find any time for gaming in between all those exams?
Of course, because otherwise I'd gone insane, right? At this point, I would be but a frothing mass of flesh otherwise. But it's nothing really intense. So, recently, my friends and I have been playing. So, I've been playing a lot of Battle. It's this new arena brawling skill shot based multiplayer game that came out on Steam very recently. It's an early access, and it's been booming the entire quote unquote indie MOBA scene. I don't know why people call it MOBA. It's not. But if I had to describe it to you, it would be like if you wanted to play Dota or League or Dota or League, and then you were just like, I hate farming and I hate ganks and I hate objectives. What if everything were just team fights? So so the entire game is just team fights and this giant character brawler of team fights. So it's very interesting. Though before I start like delving too deep into battle right mechanics, have you been doing anything recently with your gaming life? Have you found any time to play games in between making games?
Oh yeah. I set aside some time every day to play games. Recently, I have played Darkest Dungeon, which was really cool, and that was part of my research for Seventh Cross was to sit down and play some Darkest Dungeon. I really enjoyed that. I also got Final Fantasy 15, just so that I could see what all the hype is about. It's pretty cool, but it's pretty different from the other games. I don't know if I'm ready to recommend it just yet, but it's definitely not like any Final Fantasy you've played before.
Yeah, because it's Kingdom Hearts.
It's a little like Kingdom Hearts. It's a bit like 13 and 12. It's actually if you played Final Fantasy 14, the MMO, and you were like, all these other people are dumb, I want the whole world to myself, That's kind of what it's like.
Okay.
So you have this extremely competent party that that can heal themselves and heal you and doesn't typically die or do anything wrong, and you just go around and do quests on the overworld map, and that's where I am so far. I haven't gotten real deep into the story yet, but going around and doing the quest is fun, and the map is fun to travel on.
Is the car nice?
The car is extremely nice. I'm very jealous of this car.
It's real though. I heard that somewhere in the news that they sold a collector's edition of Final Fantasy 15 that came with the car.
Well, I with all my board game money, I was not able to buy that edition, unfortunately. But
Super expensive.
someday.
Someday. So you talked about Darkest Dungeon. I love that game. Why were you researching on it for Seventh Cross? Was it more for mechanics or more for themes or what?
A little bit of both. When I'm working on, so for those who don't know, Seventh Cross is a thematic game that we're working on for late 2017, early 2018, and that game is you're a group of monster hunters that work for this church, and you're trying to hunt down different monsters across the world, sometimes solve mysteries, but ultimately unravel this conspiracy and defeat crazy bosses. And so I wanted to do a lot of research into the gothic horror genre to understand why, how to create the feeling behind the game, a little bit of the graphic designs that go into these games, and what sort of mechanics were supporting the feeling of fear, and how I could integrate those into my own project.
Okay, so
So
what do you
I've been
call it?
playing that among others. I've already played through Bloodborne and Dark Souls. I did Salt and Sanctuary recently. I've played a couple Castlevanias. You know, all that kind of stuff, just to get the right idea for what I want to do.
Okay, that's very interesting. So let's talk about Darkest Dungeon specifically. What specific thing about Darkest Dungeon do you think contributes to this entire mongering of fear, or like the fear experience, or the gothic horror part of it all?
I think that what Darkest Dungeon does really well is it keeps all your characters on the edge of death all the time.
Yeah.
And things just get worse and worse as you go along. So
Yeah.
there's this constant trickle of what's the word of oh, I might die right now, and pushing and push and but there's treasure right ahead. Do I want to push a little bit more? And it makes you weigh those risks against your team members, in a way that's pretty unique among RPGs.
Yeah. I really love that aspect of Darkest Dungeon because it never felt like it was getting too easy.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think that like played into its biggest weakness because I got into the end game, and the end game's horrible because what it essentially boils down to is that no matter how far you are into the game, no matter how much equipment you have, everyone feels like a level 1 character because every dungeon's just scaling up so much that you never feel stronger ever.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, as soon as you start to feel strong, then you take away you lose fear. And I mean that was one of
yeah.
the problems with like the Evil Within, is that it started out really good because there were monsters that you just couldn't kill that would just like it looked like you could kill them because they had life bars and they took damage when you shot them, but they never ever died, and they just got up and chased you around and killed you if you tried to fight back. And so there was this feeling of helplessness to it all. And as soon as you give the player the power to fight back and the idea of oh, I could win, as soon as the player thinks that maybe I could win, then it becomes a power fantasy and not a fear experience.
Yeah, that is indeed true. So I think synthesizing a lot of these games that we've been playing, I think their focus on specific gameplay experiences, or at least like imparting a certain emotion or feel or experience and concentrating on that contributes to their success a lot. Because you were talking about how Darkest Dungeon focuses on that experience of like fear and powerlessness, and I think Battlerite kind of focuses on that entire, because like in League or Dota or something like that, like there's this entire flex reflex skill based mechanic regarding skill shots, like it's in the name. So like Battle Right focuses itself entirely on skill shots. No skills are select, and everything is basically manually controlled by the player. So their extreme focus on player skill, I think, contributes a lot to their success. And of course, kind of contributes a lot to their downfall, because the original game that Battle Right was based off, Bloodborne, if you've ever... not Bloodborne, sorry, Bloodline Champions.
Okay, that I haven't played.
Yeah, Bloodline Champions essentially was the spiritual ancestor of Battle Right, and so Bloodline Champions ended up dying because the player base would dwindle down because it was too hyper focused on skill to the point that new players couldn't come in without getting wrecked every game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was
it's important
a big
to
problem.
balance these kind of things out. That a game isn't too skill focused, and I think that it's probably one of the pitfalls of BattleCon is that it's very important that you know all the cards going into a fight, especially if you're against an experienced player.
Yeah.
So it's not an up or a down, but it does reduce your player base. So in that sense, I guess it's a down. But there are always players out there who want to have a game that's as focused on skill as they can.
Yeah.
You know,
So
different strokes
for different folks. So speaking of BattleCon, let's get into our BattleCon character of the week. Our BattleCon character of the week is
Hikaru Sorayama.
Okay. I deign to try pronounce any of the names of these characters. So can you?
I'll set you straight. That's what everyone's really going to listen for. They're going to listen
Yeah.
for pronunciations to the BattleCon names.
Yeah. So listeners, if you're listening right now, I want a mega cut of every BattleCon name that Brad will ever pronounce, so that we have a reference for everything. So can you tell us a little bit more about our character of the week, Brad? His lore, some design.
So Hikaru Sorayama is one of the first characters that's designed for BattleCon. He's sort of the Ryu of the set. He hails from Relicore, which is on the eastern coast of the continent of Indians, and is a student at Argent University in the Department of Natural Magic. Hikaru studies geomancy, which is or elemancy, which is the control of elements, fire, water, wind, and earth. And he integrates these into his own martial arts style, which he's developing, called the Way of Four Fists, which is sort of an elemental kung fu, in the way that you have like the different animal styles of kung fu. And so that
wizard fu.
Yeah, wizard fu, I suppose, would be a great way to put it. So Hikaru is also has some elemental heritage. So magic is sort of everywhere in Indians, and there are elementals just roaming around the world, and a lot of them take human form. And so he is part light elemental, and his father is descended from the elemental of the eastern sunrise, which is the like at the beginning of, or what's the word? Lives on that east coast of Relicore. Anyway, so he has this strange heritage that he does not fully understand, because his dad is kind of crazy, and and so he lives with his mom and his stepdad and his half sister, and and he goes to, his story kind of begins when he goes to Argent. He meets up with Kadath, the other main character from the front of the War of Indians box, and in order to fulfill some of his class requirements, he decides to go adventuring, and that begins his main storyline, where he goes with Kadath on all these various adventures, and then eventually sets off on his own to go across the sea and explore the faraway continent that is as of yet unnamed.
Unnamed continents.
Mm-hmm. As of now, we haven't had him return from that continent in the story, but we'll probably see what's over there when we get back after Wanderers.
Okay, so some teasers for all of you guys out there wanting some Hikaru stuff. So wait, how does Pendros factor into this again?
So Pendros is an older member of Hikaru's, I guess you'd call him fraternity, at the Argent University. Pendros is kind of a mentor to Hikaru. and they're good friends, but they haven't adventured together or anything like that.
Oh,
It's more of
okay.
a tangential connection between those two characters, not a major plot point.
Okay, so let's talk about the mechanics of this character. So, from what I've experienced playing Hikaru, he's a brawler-esque character that focuses more on melee attacks and speed, but his four elements are actually present in his gameplay, and his design is that he can ante these various tokens that allow him to gain various bonuses, be it extra range, extra power, extra defense, or extra speed. So this makes Hikaru one of the most versatile characters in the cast in a sense, so long as you manage his tokens properly. And managing those tokens properly is key to playing a really effective and powerful Hikaru. Hikaru doesn't really have the best stats in the world, but given his tokens, he can be a huge hard-hitting character or one of the most defensive characters in the game because it gives him Soak 3. So he makes use of this mechanic that you've coined the show token. So can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so show token is the basically 4 token characters, and we have a few of these. Hikaru is one, Eric is one. There's an unpublished one called Jasper, who eventually would appear, and Pendros also is one. But the idea is that they are sort of self-complete in their styles, and that the UA, the tokens that they get, is sort of is just a bonus effect. And we initially designed these guys so that we could teach the game, because when we teach BattleCON, we like to give you styles and bases and let you figure out how that works, and then say, now you also have this cool extra thing, and give them their UA. And so characters that require their UA to be present all the time to function don't make for the best teaching characters.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was the key design behind Hikaru, was take a character that's already good and give him some tools that make him especially good. And that's the idea, that he is well-rounded and he excels in every area, and then when you start using your tokens effectively, he becomes truly exceptional in every single aspect, as long as he's
Yep.
playing his tokens right.
Yeah, as long as he plays his cards right.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you call Hikaru a brawler? Huh?
Yeah, I'd say he's kind of the definitional
Yes.
brawler, and it's that same, what kind of defines all the brawlers is that same idea of they work well without their UAs, and the UA is just the icing on the cake that
Yep.
that improves them in certain situations, but it doesn't
Yeah,
define them the way that it defines some characters.
like, characters like Cherry who don't work without their UAs at all.
Yeah, the specialist type characters.
So that's what a specialist is. So, if you were to give some tips on how to effectively use Hikaru, what tips would you give as literally the guy who made this character?
I would say that if you're learning Hikaru, the best thing to do is to focus on probably your best 3 moves, and figure out what your best 3 moves are, and then figure out which token makes your best move a blowout, and which token makes your best move safety. And then
Okay.
decide, am I going to use move A, B, or C, and am I going to use it in the all-in fashion, or am I going to use it in the safe fashion? And kind of start playing like that, and see how it's going to change your outcomes. And you'll find that against certain players, the safety option tends to become a lot stronger, and against certain players, the all-in option tends to win the day for you. And a lot of it is understanding how your opponent's going to play, whether they're going to try and be safe or to go all in on their attacks. And as long as you counter appropriately, then you'll win the day.
Yeah, so he pretty much is a kung fu wizard because, he has to flow with the opponent and take advantage of their weaknesses, much like typical brawlers who excel in a lot of aspects and then take advantage of opponents' weaknesses.
Yeah. And Hikaru is good in the sense that he has both. When we design it, we call it like question and answer.
Yeah.
He has a lot of hard questions he can ask the opponent. Your question is always, what are you going to do about this? And we talk about how difficult it is to answer that. And he also has a lot of very solid answers to, well, this is what I'll do to beat that type of plays. And so he can react and be proactive very effectively. And so it just depends. It depends a lot. Like a character take for example, like Rokyuk is very much a question character and not an answer character. He very much has a lot of really powerful moves, but he doesn't have a lot to deal with what you're doing. It's
Yeah, that's
mostly
true.
he makes you deal with what he's doing, and once you throw anything at him that he's not prepared or that he's not got the control of the play, he kind of crumbles.
Yeah.
And Hikaru, of course, has a a very balanced kit that allows him to both dish out threats and to deal with threats.
After all, his unique ability does basically let them basically answer almost anything just by anteing a token, right? Like, what are you gonna do about this? I'll just ante more power, or something along those lines. Personally, in my experience, playing a lot of Hikaru, I mean, I actually ended up playing this character over like 20, 50 times in like my first month of BattleCon. Because when I got BattleCon for the first time, he was the only character I printed out, along with like the Cadenza and Calistar and Rokyuk. So I ended up playing Hikaru a lot, and I noticed the Geomantic shot is like amazing. Amazing, because it is both a question and an answer, because of the specific geomantic text that allows him to ante an extra token after seeing the opponent's attack pair, and that's like some pretty high level stuff or whatever, but it just basically means that he threatens you with 7 damage and you can barely do anything about it, and if you try to do something about it, he'll counter ante you after seeing your attack pair.
Yeah, those kind of soft cancels can be extremely powerful, and all of the show token characters have them. Have some way to do that soft cancel and play another token after they reveal. Eric's is what makes him really, really broken. Is the ability to shut off triggers after he sees what you're doing.
Yeah.
But the neat thing, I think, with oh gosh, I lost my train of thought.
Eric,
nah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. We'll just move on.
Let's
We'll
move
just
on.
move on and forget
Okay,
that.
so that does it for our character of the week. I hope all of you learned something extra cool about our character of the week, Hikaru, and also I hope you guys learned how to actually play him a bit properly. Maybe some of you have had problems with him. If you guys have, tweet us at our Twitter. I'll put it on the screen right now. Or if you guys want, you can just email us or send us questions on Tumblr, which again I'll link on the video right now. So let's move on to something that maybe some of you have been anticipating, and that's answering some of the questions that the community has given us. So if you guys don't know, we actually take questions for this. Again, I will post some links for you guys to send those questions in. You can ask them on Discord, ask them on Tumblr, ask them by sending it to the Twitter, and all that good stuff. Don't worry, we'll post the links to the Twitters and the Tumblrs in some place that you guys can easily access them. So let's ask some questions to Brad and me, though mostly Brad, because what the heck do I know?
Well, I think we can. I'll ask you if I have any questions.
Okay, sure. So here's some questions from the community. They're asking if we can get some more web apps, because recently we're seeing that the website is updating and getting new apps, like the card database and so on and so forth. And they're asking at some point, are we gonna get some AI for BattleCon so that you can play with yourself? That's available on the site, because I know we already have some, like Yaron's AI that's available on Board Game Geek. But are we gonna get some, like, quote unquote officially hosted on the BattleCon website?
I think the next time that we see AI, we're going to see it in BattleCon Online, and that's something that we've been working on and talking about in our side of things. As far as an AI web app, we don't currently have plans for one. But if somebody wrote one and open sourced it, we would certainly host the open source app the way that we host the Millennium Blades and Witch Hunt and BattleCon database apps. So yeah, we would if somebody puts one together and it runs on the web, we'd be happy to host it on our site.
You heard that, guys. Wink, wink. That's like Brad speak for do it, please. We need it.
Yeah, I can't do it all myself. So.
Yeah, okay. So let's speed through some of the other questions. They don't really take that long. So some people are asking, how easy is it to obtain extra card components and bases and stands without having to purchase another game. Because some people have realized that they might need dodge as a replacement for dash, but they don't necessarily want to buy the newest set to get access to dodge. So how are you guys planning to deal with that?
We're planning to release the extra cards on drive-through cards. So if you want more copies of the newest base set, or if you want more copies of a specific card, you should be able to just buy those in infinite quality through drive-through cards. Quality
Okay.
of drive-through cards is pretty close to the production quality of the main cards. And whenever we do get around to finally doing that big box, we will also throw in a bunch of copies of base sets in there so that you can store each character with their own base set in the big storage box.
Okay, so let's ask one more question before we move on, and I think this one's very interesting, though maybe we won't have enough time to cover this in depth. Is there an actual formula for how styles and BattleCon are designed? Do we have, like, if you have this amount of power, should you have this amount of priority or something like that? Or do we just, like, randomly, arbitrarily put values and mess around until it somewhat seems fair?
Well, there's not a specific mathematical template, but there is a stylistic template. For example, a defensive style pretty much looks like this, and an offensive style pretty much looks like that. And so, for example, you'll always see stun guard paired with negative priority. You'll always see, and positive power usually. You'll see range usually paired with negative priority. Typically, every stat that you put in detracts from the priority of the style. And so if you start with a style that has just a priority +2 template and you start adding other things on, you'll start taking priority off. So that's typically the idea. More complex your attack is, the slower it's going to be. Obviously, different characters have different needs. So you get somebody like Alexian, who has a negative UA, and that's going to buff his entire kit.
Yep.
And it throws off the math of the entire thing. But you can do a little bit of mathematics, and there's a lot of general heuristics to the way that things are done. For example, like you talk about magical stun guard 3.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a real thing that we know about in design too, and that we design around. Like if you generate stun guard 2, nobody really cares. So you have to generate 3 before it even registers with your character.
Yeah.
Obviously, shot helps out a lot with that.
And force gauge.
Helps out quite a lot too.
Yeah.
And shot's probably the most difficult base to design around. And I think if I could go back and do it again, I probably would have made shot like a 2 to 4 range instead of a 1 to 4 range.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense from a you throw a fireball and it tracks across the screen sense that it's range 1 to 4, but the fact that from a gameplay perspective, it doesn't really make as much sense to have such a viable attack also hit in melee range.
Yeah, shot, I think people oftentimes say that shot's like the best base. I mean, I have a different opinion, of course. But yeah, I mean, like most of the time, like the only reason shot's really good is because burst is in the game, period. But yeah, shot was like one of the main things that you pair with a lot of your styles because it's just that good. And force gauge just makes it better, like extremely better, because everyone now has a safe shot. Like no matter what, you basically have a safe shot now because of force gauge, and it's kind of interesting. But yeah, shot warps a lot of attacks.
It makes dodge a bit more important, which is nice. But the and it's okay when some bases are stronger than other bases.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
everybody has the different bases, and so everybody has a moment to make their power play, and that is part of the ebb and flow of combat that keeps it interesting, is that the high ground shifts between players, and that was one of the key foundations of BattleCon, is that when you can't reuse the same thing over and over. The playing field of combat keeps changing because every turn you're losing cards and you're gaining cards and you're changing your positions on the board, and so there are big repercussions beyond just whether or not you do damage in a single beat. And that was one of the things that really sets it apart from a lot of the other fighting card games out in the market.
Yeah.
You don't just care, did I hit or miss? You really care about all these secondary outcomes.
Resource management,
often,
positioning.
Yeah. And often you care about them even more than whether or not you hit the opponent.
That's why dash is like the best play. That's why.
Because it gives you resources and it's totally safe.
Yeah.
That's why we had to. That's why we moved to dodge, and I'm very happy with dodge.
I
that
really
we'll be
like.
introducing with trials.
Yeah. Sideline a bit. I really like dodge. Like though it kind of throws the balance out of whack for some characters, like Lim and Cesar and Seth, I guess. I think Seth got like super buffed with dodge. So yeah, I feel like characters like Seth, Caesar, and Lim kind of got warped a bit by the shift from from dash to dodge. Specifically, characters like Lim, for example, one of her styles basically becomes useless because it was just meant to counter dashes, and now it can't do that because dodge is priority 3. But I feel like dodge was overall a very positive change because ever since the change, I've honestly purposely clashed at least 4 or 5 dodges, and that's just like in the span of 5 games or something like that. It's really intense, and I really like it because now it means it isn't as safe of a play, but at the same time it is a safer play because now characters like Schecter and Demetras no longer like totally destroy you just because you're slower than them when you dodge.
I feel like dodge is kind of the one of the most elegant skill implementations that we have in the game because it adds a new skill and a new valuation for the advanced players, and the new players who don't understand why you would clash with dodge are not affected by it at all, and it doesn't factor at all into their play. And so we've built something that high level players can appreciate and that low level players don't even notice or have interfere with their world at all. And so it's a very nice little design that we've done. I could say that I was very happy with the playtesters who suggested that change to me.
Yeah, I really love the dodge change. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and you mentioned a few characters that'll be affected by it, but it's about time to rebalance devastation anyway. So I expect that in the next, probably in 2018 or so, we're going to be issuing a patch for devastation anyway.
Oh, okay. So speaking of news, let's move on to our next segment. Let's talk about News 99. In News 99, Brad and I are going to disseminate some information about upcoming projects and some cool stuff that Level 99 Games might have in store for you. Now, now you've just announced that we're basically getting a patch to Devastation. Everybody commit that to memory just now. But let's talk about Mega Man Pixel Tactics, whose Kickstarter just recently finished. Successfully.
It did really well. Mega Man Pixel Tactics. We've been working on that game for quite a while, and it's very exciting to finally have it be coming out, and hopefully coming out quite early. We're looking at a pretty close by release date. Obviously, won't be this year, but it should be very early next year, and that was a lot of fun to design. I went through and I designed, the Mega Man 1 through 6 characters, and then 9 and 10 came out, and I went back to Jasco Games and I was like, hey, let's design Mega Man 9 and 10 as promo characters, and it turned out there were so many promo characters we were able to do a third box, the base black box, and now we've got like 100 Mega Man Pixel Tactics characters, and it's pretty cool. 100 after you add in like the Star Droids from Mega Man 5 for the Game Boy.
Okay, so for those who don't know, do you want to tell us what Pixel Tactics is all about?
Yeah, sure. So Pixel Tactics is a SRPG card game, and it kind of plays a bit like Disgaea or Final Fantasy Tactics or Ogre Battle or those sorts of games, Advance Wars. It takes that aesthetic and it places it into a compact card game. The game is only about 50 cards. You and your opponent both have a deck of 25 cards, and you choose one of those cards to promote to your leader, and that character gets some big ability that affects the entire battlefield. And then the rest of your cards you deploy onto the table, and in different positions they give you different abilities. In the front wave you can have some kind of defensive or shock troop type ability. In the middle you get a utility type effect or support. And in the back you usually get some sort of artillery or spell or ranged attack on your characters. And so figuring out the best position and the best timing to deploy each different hero in your unit is the key element to victory. And there's a lot of a wrestling match to Pixel Tactics. You want to build a unit that is strong enough to withstand and then pin your opponent down. And once you pin your opponent down, you beat up their leader and defeat them.
Yep.
So it can be really intense. It can be really light. It's one of those nice games that you can play casually or competitively.
Yes.
And the key competitive format for Pixel Tactics is draft, and that's what our official tournament format is cube draft.
Okay.
For Pixel Tactics.
Yeah.
Because
yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Go on.
oh no, I was saying because the game is mostly about is really about adaptation and picking the key character at the key time. The draft format works and is a lot more interesting and exciting than the constructed format. Because with constructed, you just have every card you want all the time.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as interesting in terms of what makes Pixel Tactics interesting.
Yeah, I really love Pixel Tactics. I got the first game back when it was included in the library, along with all the other smallish games that came in like the 52 card pack boxes. I love that game. I played it so many times. I think I ended up calling out that Berserker was broken.
Yep,
Ooh.
and it was in the first one.
Yeah.
That was rebalanced shortly after.
Yeah, because it ended up that every game was literally just, do I draw into Berserker and Fighter? Because if I do, I immediately win, because you will die.
Yeah, those two were so good back when they could hit leaders. But yeah, so Mega Man Pixel Tactics is the really cool thing, and it's everything we just told you about, but with Mega Man characters.
Yes.
And if that doesn't make it even better for you, then I don't know. There's no other way I can sell it to you. But this is the only Mega Man game, and I feel pretty safe saying it's the only Mega Man game that lets you play as every single robot master from every game 1 through 6 and 9 and 10. We skipped 7 and 8 because they were all in 3D and they didn't have the pixel thing going on. But
yeah,
1 through 6, 9 and 10, every robot master is available to play in Mega Man Pixel Tactics, and I think that alone makes it one of the coolest Mega Man games ever made.
Yep, you can even play as Wily. And speaking
Yes.
of Wily, a lot of people backing the Kickstarter have gotten concerns about, stuff like, graphic design and, of course, game balance, especially after seeing Dr. Wily's ability that lets him summon 8 things at the start of the game, because, he's Wily and he has 8 robot masters.
This is such a great thematic ability, because as soon as the game starts and you play Wily, you pick up a few more cards from your deck, and you pick 8 robot masters, and you put them in a square around you, and that's your boss select screen, if you will. And you fight with this. So, but Wily can't get more heroes, and so the concern has been that it's really powerful, that he just gets this whole unit. Actually, we found in testing it's a little bit weak, because if you can survive that initial salvo, then it's very easy to just beat up Wily directly without going through all the robot masters. And so what we wanted to we're probably going to give him a slight buff before he gets to print, just to make him a little more interesting and competitive, because it would be nice if you could put down Doc Robot or Dark Man or Mecha Dragon or something before you actually have to fight him. So we're going to give him a little bit of a buff.
Okay, that's fair.
And then, but as far as the graphic design goes, the cards are now templated to look like Mega Man cards. They are compatible with all the other Pixel Tactics cards, but you have to sleeve. Of course, also if you're drafting, it doesn't really matter about what the backs look like, because everybody sees all the cards. It's a table draft.
Okay.
So there's a few changes with it, but they shouldn't really affect too much. Mega Man Pixel Tactics will be the same Pixel Tactics that you know and love. And also, without having all the icons on the front of the cards, we have a lot more room to make the effects clearer, to use a little more text, and to make the text a bit larger. So we don't have the really tiny fonts on those cards, which was one complaint.
Doppelganger.
Yeah. And we had a couple cards where even the text was pushing the icons off the side of the card. It was pretty impressive.
Goodness.
So So Mega Man Pixel Tactics does away with all that, and I think it's a pretty nice change, actually.
I really love Mega Man Pixel Tactics. I mean, I'm a huge Mega Man nerd, so I really love this upcoming game from Level 99 Games and Jasco Games. So speaking of Pixel Tactics, Brad, recently you've sent out some emails regarding Pixel Tactics Online. Can you tell us about that?
So we are working on Pixel Tactics Online right now, and we are looking for more pre-alpha testers. We have a good group of testers that get together on Discord and just play the game and debug and help to get us ready for the alpha, the real alpha. But currently, we just need more hands. So if you want to play Pixel Tactics Online in the bleeding edge alpha version, and you're okay with a game that, with basically bug finding, and submitting bugs through our bug tracker, then I encourage you to come online and email us or tweet us and say, like, I want to join Pixel Tactics Online, and I'll get you in there, and we will play some PTO. Currently works on PC, but a Mac build should be coming. So,
okay, that's good.
Yeah. No, it's been a lot of fun, and Cameron, the designer, is doing an incredible job of getting that game together. It's come together really fast, and it looks really good, and Fontez's sprite art is incredible for Pixel Tactics Online.
Oh man, the sprite art's so hype.
Good. So good.
By the way, to add to that, aside from that, you can just straight up join the Discord channel instead and just, talk to all of us there. Again, we'll give you the links near the end of somewhere convenient for you guys to find.
The unofficial Discord channel. I don't moderate that place. Just
yeah.
FYI.
Yeah, it's unofficial. I mean, you're in that Discord channel, but like
I am.
It's not official.
But it's the fan community. It's not the the official community.
Yeah. It's not the official. Christ. Okay. So now let's drop PT a bit. Not that it's bad. It's great. Not PT the way Konami dropped PT, but I'm like talking about PT Pixel Tactics here. So let's talk about something, because I'm so sorry. We introduced
That's good.
We introduced Seventh Cross earlier in the podcast, and I guess let's just talk about the upcoming Exceed set, which features these characters. So what can you tell us about Seventh Cross Exceed?
Well, I guess I should probably start with the actual about what is Seventh Cross. So it's an alternate history property that kind of takes place in the 1920s.
Okay.
That centers around a group of church exorcists, inquisitors, monster hunters, whatever you want to call it, who travel around and kill and contain all sorts of crazy monsters. And their goals is to keep normal humans from finding out about these about the nature of magic and the monsters that are in the world, and the various other factions in the world that want to use these forces for their own gains. So there's an ancient empire that was toppled, hundreds of years ago, and they want to make a comeback. There's some secret societies, government organizations, and the like that want to kind of capture and study these creatures and use them for for their own ends. And there are individual, rogue mages and heretics that want to embrace these dark powers. And the monsters in Seventh Cross are all humans who have been corrupted by magic. And so when you use magic, when you tap into these dark forces, it kind of changes you and corrupts you and eventually transforms you into a monster if you use that too much. And so the hunters of the church that you play as do use magic and miracles in their fight against these same forces. So you are always at the risk of of transforming yourself.
Ooh.
And so that theme of not only there are monsters, but the monsters are in us and could and if we don't be careful, we might become the very thing that we fight against.
Okay.
And so that's kind of at the foundation of Seventh Cross. The Exceed set is going to be the first introduction to these characters in this world, and then we're going to bring it out even further in a standalone game next year.
Yes.
And that'll be coming probably in the later portion of 2017. But Seventh Cross Exceed There are 16 fighters, as with the normal season of Exceed. The cool thing about it is that it introduces a transformation mechanic. So some of your special moves, instead of having a boost at the bottom, they have a transform. And when you hit with a transform attack, it transforms and becomes a permanent ability for your character. So
okay, so it like becomes a passive.
Right. So it becomes an always-on passive once you hit with it. And it also reduces the cost of your Exceed mode. So the cost of flipping your character over and getting access to your more powerful ability reduces for each transformation you have in play. And in Exceed, the character's Exceed side is their monstrous form. So they flip over and they fully transform. And in Exceed, at 7th Cross, the characters don't tend to just get better. Like in Red Horizon Exceed, you would tend to have characters that if they have like +2 to this thing on their front, they'd have +4 on the backside. In 7th Cross, it's very different. A character who had kind of a defensive style on the on the front side might get a power attacker style on the backside, or who had like a sustainability might get a mobility or a spike damage ability on the back. And so the cards in your deck and the transformations that you have sort of play into both styles. And so knowing when to transform and to change your strategy drastically is a big part of the game, because each character changes their strategy really drastically when they transform.
Okay, so that's some awesome news for all of you guys, and that's enough for News 99. And that brings us to the end of this Level Cap podcast, hosted by me, Marco De Santos, also known as the Mechanic Critic, and of course, hosted by the ever wonderful Brad Tatlin Jr., president, designer, esquire of Level 99.
Esquire.
It applies to everyone, right?
I suppose. Well, thank you for having me, Marco. This was a lot of fun, and I look forward to sharing some more stuff with you guys pretty soon.
Yeah, of course. And of course, for everyone listening right now, if you guys want to reach our Twitter, our Tumblr, Brad, can you, tell us what the Twitter and the Tumblr are?
Yeah, our Twitter is at Level99Games, Level 99 GAMES.
Mm-hmm.
You can also get in touch with us on Board Game Geek, just by submitting in any of the forums for games we make. And you can also get in touch with us through Facebook on our Level 99 Games Facebook page. There's even a Reddit for r/BattleCON. And of course Discord, which Marco will post the link to after this video. So come and get involved in the community. Come and meet us. You can chat with me. You can chat with Marco. We're cool guys, and we're actually available and up for talking with anybody.
Well, I think we're both taken.
Yeah. Not that. You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
No, I'm just kidding. All right, so
don't mix metaphors with me.
Okay, so thank you all so much for listening. We hope to see you guys next time.
Next time.